Good morning. Oh my goodness, let me click a couple places and just make sure that we are live. Like, I think we are live. Oh, we are. Awesome. Does everybody have their coffee? I have mine. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Happy first real week of the school year. Normally I talk to you on Mondays and I say happy Monday, but it's not Monday, it's Tuesday, although it feels like a Monday. And it's good to see everybody here in the studio. My name is Allison Jensen. I'm the owner of Orange Easel School of Art, and this is our first real weekly video of the 2023-24 school year. I did make one last week actually for all of our Monday people, and I only sent it out to the Monday people. So everybody else gets this video, which is here on Tuesday, because that's when you guys start classes. So I am sending this one to the Monday people too, but hopefully everybody on Monday knew yesterday that you didn't have class and you did not come. This is going to be a lot of repeat of what you guys saw in your video last week, plus some more stuff. So we're going to talk through fundamentals because we didn't talk through that last week. We're going to talk through creative explorations and drawing 103 comic, which we didn't talk about last week because it didn't meet last week. So this is a comprehensive one where we will go through every single class and talk about what they're learning this week. If you are new to the studio, I send these videos every week. You're going to get a video update from me, and it's going to talk through every single class. Now, if you catch me live here on YouTube, you have to just suffer through the 30 minutes of me chatting at you. But if you're catching the replay, which is what most people are doing, you can actually click to the timestamps and just watch the information about your class. So if your kid is in fundamentals, you can just watch fundamentals. If your kid is in multimedia, you can just watch multimedia. And then also go click through and read or watch the housekeeping stuff, because there'll be some information in there that you're going to want to know. Okay. Otherwise, let's dive in, shall we? All right. I didn't bring any notes, but I did bring a lot of props. Let's jump in. Let's talk through these fundamental classes. So this is our first week of preschool classes. These are morning classes that meet at 9:30. We meet 3 times this month. And for all of my classes this month, it is the first 3, unless you're in the Monday class, and then it's the last 3 because Monday didn't meet because of Labor Day. So my Monday fundamentals group out in Flatwoods, your first class is not until next Monday. You're like a week behind everybody, and it's our only class that's that way, but it'll be okay, I promise. But we're going to talk through what these guys are doing. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to get a journal, and we'll see these again because these are the same journals that my multimedia kids and my creative exploration kids get. But this is our art journal, and this is where we will respond to our story. Now, this one did not come with a hole already cut in it because I grabbed this from the kind of the extra stash. But yours this first week will actually, when you open up the page, will have a hole cut in the first page. And that's because the book that we're reading is called The Book with Hole. And it's by Her Toulay, which is a really interactive author and illustrator. He wrote Press Here, which is another great one. It doesn't work in our classes because everybody wants to press and it's a group reading. So, but the book with the hole is a different way of thinking of illustration because the book actually has a hole cut out of it. In the month of September, our focus for the kids is on circles. So we're looking at circles. We're looking at the art of Wassily Kandinsky, which is like one of his most famous paintings is the one that's concentric circles. And we'll learn big words like concentric, and they'll practice making concentric art. Our project for this first class is a concentric circle drawing and painting. So they'll do a combination of oil pastels and watercolors. As we move throughout the month, we're also going to read The Dot, which is a great book by Peter H. Reynolds. And then one of my favorites, It Fell from the Sky, which is an amazing illustrated book by the Fan brothers. Like beautiful, beautiful. And that one will use chalk pastels on black paper. So we're going to bring a little bit of our multimedia curriculum into the fundamentals classes. And if you're new to fundamentals, the first half of the class is more directed and more like what you would think of in a class setting. It's still very loosey-goosey because they're preschoolers, but it's going to be like, everybody go here and we're going to do a project. Everybody go over here, we're going to read a story. Everybody get out your journals, we're going to respond to it. And then the last half of the classes is when we do the free play, and the stations are set up In the preschool room, they stay the same for the entire month, and they have to do with everything else we're learning. So you're going to see a lot of circles, you're going to see a lot of dots, you're going to see some opportunities to make concentric art, you're going to see things that are more play-based ways to work through the curriculum. So those stations stay the same for the month, and then they'll switch the next month. Our multimedia classes are diving into chalk pastels. So I'm going to go through what the different projects are. I brought a couple different examples, not a million different examples, but a couple. So I thought I'd show you. First things first, my youngest group, which is the K first, the second, third, looking for which handouts I want, and our K through third, because we have K through third classes, all do the same curriculum. Now, these guys are going to be looking at some art history as well. This is Castle and Son. And it's kind of hard to see on whenever I do a virtual background like this, where I have the slideshow up, I have a green screen behind me. And so anytime there's green on the art that I'm showing you, it's gonna look a little funky. So there is some green on here. This is Castle and Son by Paul Klee, and it is a geometric landscape architectural drawing. You can see lots of straight lines, lots of great shapes, and lots of great color. So we're gonna look at this artwork and then make our own interpretation of Castle and Son. They are working pretty big. This is the paper that their project will be on. It is actually felted, like roofing felt, which has a really great texture to it and holds the chalk really well. It has a lot of, in the art world, we call it tooth, a lot of tooth to it. So we really like this paper. They'll tape a border on it and then work to use rulers to make their artwork. Now, they're not actually starting this on week 1. We're going to show it to them. They're going to look at it. But we're not actually going to start the project, because in multimedia classes, we're teaching a medium. We're teaching them to use a supply. These are chalk pastels. Some of our kids will have used them before. Some of them have not. Oh, this isn't even a brand new box. I do have brand new boxes too, although it's not too bad. And you can see we've got all the chalk pastels. You can see some of them are green. So they'll have a lesson in using pastels this week, and they'll get to play with them. We actually work through how to color 1 layer, how to color 2 layers, how to blend 2 colors together, how to create a gradient, how to color a solid layer and then add texture on top or marks on top. And so they'll be playing with their pastels this week. They'll also get introduced to our inspiration picture. They might play with rulers if they have time, but a lot of the class will be spent just getting to know one another, because we're going to spend an entire year together. So we want to get to know each other. On week 2 is when they'll start gridding out their paper and start coloring in what their Castle and Son picture looks like. I'll set that down on the ground. That's our K1, second, thirds, and K through third classes. Ready for the next one? Our 4th and 5th class and our homeschool classes, they also follow the same curriculum. So they are going to be doing a portrait lesson. This is a repeat lesson for us. We've done this multiple times. We've done Castle and Son multiple times too. The portrait lesson, actually, if you go to Facebook, I think it was yesterday's social media posts that went up, had some examples of some of the portrait projects that we've done in the past. So this is putting eyes, nose, and mouth in the right space on a head. So their lesson on day 1 will be a lot of getting things in the right places. We're also going to look at some different art from either contemporary artists or from the masters on what portraiture is and what it can be. Because just because somebody does a portrait that's super realistic, on the flip side, there's Matisse, who uses some wild and crazy colors. And then there's Picasso, who mixed everything up. So we want to give them some options and let them understand that it doesn't need to look like the way Da Vinci makes a portrait, right? There are options. And we love using a lot of great colors in pastels. So we're hoping to inspire them to use amazing colors if they want to. They're going to do their drawings in glue first. So this is an example of one of the pastels, and everywhere that you see the black line is actually white spool glue. So we're working on black construction paper, and the white spool glue dries clear. So when you draw with the glue, it's going to go on white, and then it's going to dry clear. And then the pastels really can't cover that because it's shiny and slick, and it just rubs right off. And what it does is it gives us borders. And chalk pastels, they're kind of like watercolors where they don't stay where you put them. So borders are important, and this helps them to be successful in their portraiture. So their first step, once they've figured out what the way they want their face to look like, and it doesn't have to be a picture of them, it can be a picture of somebody they know, it could be a picture of somebody that they imagine, it could be a monster, it can be any type of portraiture that they want to make. Once they've got their idea, they'll draw it in glue, and we'll let it dry. We'll be ready to color next week. They will also get to do a little bit of playing with the chalk pastels, but they will do their chalk pastel medium lesson next week. All right, now I don't have a lot for my middle school, high schoolers because it's a brand new lesson for us. Last year we did sea creatures, and a lot of my returning, we have a lot of returning teens, especially here in Liberty, who know me well. They know how much I love a sea creature project. If it is fish, you guys, I am sold. And last year we gave them a really broad subject, and we just said anything under the sea, anything ocean, water, sea life. And this year we're kind of narrowing that focus again, and we're going with a koi pond from above. So anytime we're doing a lesson, even though we restrict the medium or restrict the subject, that's what the art is about. Even though we restrict it, we never say, hey, okay, everybody, grab your orange chalk pastel, and we're going to do a fish right up here. Grab it and make a line that looks like this. And everybody makes that line. Okay, now make a line that looks like this, and everybody, and then we all finish and our art looks identical. That is not the way we do art here. We narrow the subject just so that sometimes artists get stuck in their own head. Like, if you don't give me a pointing to start with, you know, they can't ever get started. So we narrow the focus just for time reasons, but where they go with it is totally up to them. So we've got for them, similar to when you do like you guys remember high school when you had to write term papers? And at least for us, the first step in writing the term paper was to go to Milner Library at Illinois State University and do research. And you go to the card catalog, find your book, you read your book, you hope that you find something in your book that will help you with your term paper, and you make photocopies of it, and you go find another book. And then you take all that research, you write your paper. Well, the first step in our art is also in research, right? It is in familiarizing ourselves with the subject so that we can take what our own ideas are, right? We want to put all these things in our brain, these new things, mix them up and bring our own ideas out. So we're going to research first. So there are pictures printed for them, and they all pretty much have their own devices as well. So they can bring them up on their own phones and learn a little bit about koi and what it looks like from above, what it looks like from the side. Sometimes in some photographs, the pond is blue. In some photographs, the pond is super dark. This is an example of artwork that is, it's hard to see because it's green, but it's very Monet-like. It's got these lily pads in it. I also have some that are a little bit more educational, talking about the different type of koi, so that they can research and come up with their own ideas. So their first step is going to be in researching and sketching. They have a sketchbook just like that first one that I showed you, and they'll come up with their own ideas, what their composition is going to be. Is it going to have 3 fish? Is it going to be curling into each other? Or are they all going to be swimming one place? Does my art go landscape orientation? Does it go portrait orientation? These are all decisions they have to make. They'll sketch their composition, and our goal for the end of the first class is that they've got their composition decided and even started sketching it on their black multimedia paper, which I did not bring with me, but they're also working on black paper, smaller than the big sheet. Theirs is 9 by 12. Okay. So that's multimedia. Let me clear off my desk here. It will take our multimedia students all 4 months or all 4 weeks to get through their project. So they will work for 4 weeks. By the 4th week, a lot of them will be finishing, and so we set up other things for them to work on and stations to keep them busy if they need it. A lot of the finishing details, and we'll talk about it when we get closer to the 4th week, involves matting them. So finishing them with a mat, filling out our artist statement, and titling an artwork, signing an artwork, that kind of stuff. We'll do all that in the 4th week. Creative explorations. Now, this is a new class for us, guys. I'm so excited for it. I really am. I think it's going to be an awesome year. Now, our Our thought process behind this class is everybody learns differently. And in our multimedia classes and in our drawing classes, there's a specific step that we're working on every week. There's a specific benchmark we're trying to get done each week. There's something specific we're trying to create. And not everybody learns that way. So Explorations uses a little bit of the fundamentals curriculum, uses a little bit of the multimedia curriculum, uses a little bit of the drawing curriculum, and you're going to see all three of those all put into one class where the kids direct their learning. So everything is station-based. Aside from a very little bit of introduction, there is no time where the instructor is instructing the entire class. They will work kind of individually with each artist. So I want to tell you what the stations are. They're the same for the entire month. I'm going to tell you what the stations are for our creative explorations. They are going to be in one station, exploring chalk pastels. So this table is set up with the pastel boxes, same ones that we use in multimedia classes. It's set up with the same paper we're using in multimedia classes. It's set up with, everything they need, right? The wet wipes, the paper towels, the rulers that we use for Castle in the Sun, the tracing tools that we're using for fundamentals with pastels. But there's no like, okay, everybody make this. They make what they want. It's student directive. And I meant to bring the art history one. Nuts. We have an art history lesson that goes with our creative explorations. And again, it is all just set out for them to explore. So they're doing the art of Kusama, who is an artist who is known for her dot art. So here on the slideshow, you can see this is one of her pumpkins. So we've got some circles repeating from our fundamentals curriculum, which will be really familiar for some of our artists who are new to multimedia or new to the kindergarten curriculum, but have come from fundamentals. A lot of our kids graduate that preschool curriculum and come right into multimedia, and I think this is a good transition for them. So Kusama will be something that's familiar with them, and this dot art. This art history table is centered around an info sheet that Miss Sarah made on her digital iPad thingy, which is really cool. It's got information about Kusama that they can read and explore, and examples of her art, and then some materials that help respond to her art in whatever way they want. In the journal area, which will be in the lounge, they also get journals like this. So it's theirs, it'll have their name on it. It'll have a box where all their journals are. In the journal area will be dot stickers, crayons, pictures that they can collage in and explore, again, that idea of dots and circles art. We have a collaborative mural that will switch out every single class period. I think we're starting with concentric circles, just like Kandinsky. And then there's a sensory area, which for this month, again, going with that kind of circle theme, will be water beads. And then there will always be a still life section. So the still life for this month is like flowers and leaves and pumpkins. So just kind of going seasonal with that. All right. And I believe we're using oil pastels in the still life area. So the medium will change, whatever the drawing medium is, will change every single month. But this month we're going to do chalk pastels or oil pastels, because chalk pastels are being used in the multimedia table. We're going to do oil pastels in the drawing table. Okay. So all of those stations will be set up for the month, and then the kids can explore it. The nice thing about it is because, obviously we're just getting to know kids, but once we get to know our class, we can really tailor things for that group because it stays the same. Drawing 101. So Drawing 101, their entire month is all about getting to know you. And actually, in a lot of our classes, our first class period is about getting to know them and setting expectations, and them getting to know us and making connections with them and helping them to make connections within the class. So we've got different ways to facilitate that. But just the curriculum in 101 is all about getting to know one another. They get books as well. So this is the size of their book. I was going to show the front here without a name, right? So this is the Drawing 101 student from Monday night. So they've already started to decorate it. You can also see they used green. So they get to decorate the front cover on whatever journal that they have. Their lesson is a graphite and other drawing media portrait lesson. So we're gonna, all of the drawing classes have a little bit of warm-up time. They have a lesson time where everybody sits and listens to the teacher talk about something and demonstrate something. We try to keep that very short because nobody wants to sit and just watch somebody else draw. But they'll do a lesson time, and then they have time to execute the lesson where they're actually drawing in their book. And then there's usually some free draw time and some sharing time at the end. All right. So our warm-up lesson or warm-up activity for this class was just to decorate the front cover of their journal. Something really easy. But as we get into our school year, the warm-up lesson becomes time to be a little bit silly, a time to kind of focus ourselves for class. You know, if we had a rough day, it's time for us to kind of shed that and let it all out, kind of thing. We don't want to bring them in and just start talking at them because, you know, that's hard. So we want to give them a chance to kind of get settled, to maybe catch up with their friends. And so that's what that warm-up time is. And it's short, it's 5-7 minutes. The lesson time this class period is a self-portrait lesson. So they will go through, again, the positioning of the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ears, the proportion and the scale, shape of the head. We'll talk through the details of a portrait, right? These are young artists. For some of them, they just started kindergarten, right? They might be really young. We're going to name the parts of our face. We're going to give them vocabulary. The parts of the eye, what our pupil is, what our iris is, what our eyelid is, what our eyelashes are, what our eyebrows are, what our nostrils are, what our cheekbones are, what our jawbones are, right? And so we're going to give them all the words that we can so that they can, you know, talk about what they're illustrating. Then they will go to their table and they will draw their portrait. So their portrait will start in pencil, and then slowly we're going to start to give them more supplies because we want them to also get a chance to play with some of the media that we're going to be using throughout the year. So in the Drawing 101 class, we use graphite, which is pencil. We use charcoal. We use kneaded erasers. We use regular erasers. We use Sumi ink. We use markers. We use washable markers. We use alcohol ink markers. We use chalk pastels. We use oil pastels. There might be more, but colored pencils. And so we want to give them kind of a smorgasbord of supplies that they can grab at to finish their picture. And it just gives them a good sense of everything we're going to be doing. Now, we encouraged them, once they had their portrait drawn, to add thought bubbles around their portraiture, which is an illustrated technique that allows them to tell more of the story, that you are not just what you look like on the outside, but you're also all of the thoughts and all of the interests and all of the loves inside of you. So we gave them the option of adding that and then illustrating more about themselves than just what they look like. And again, it's all about getting to know you. In all of our drawing lessons on their journal, they will get a handout to tape on. You can see this one's just taped on the front. And it says what the lesson was, what the media was, a short description, and what the goals were. And that is for your benefit, because that way you have something as a starting point to ask them questions about it. And so my drawing books, these big books, they stay in the class. They don't leave the studio, or they don't come back. We do allow them out of the classroom at pickup. So if you come to pick up your kid and you come into the lobby, or even if you're just in your car, we allow the kids to take it out and be like, hey, look what I did. And you can look at the art, and you can read the paper, and you can talk to them about it. And then we have a drop box right in the lobby where you can put them. If they go home, we don't get them back. And so we try not to bring them home. So then the instructor will go to the drop box and empty it out at the end of the night and put all of them back in the class cubbies. They're all labeled with the kid's name and class right on it. Okay. But that little handout, you'll see it. Some people put it on the front, some people put it on the page next to it, some people will put it on the back, but you'll see that in there, and that will tell you a little bit about what the lesson was. It helps that way. So when you're asking questions, you've got something to go from instead of just like, tell me about this. And then they're trying to remember and all that stuff. So, okay. And that handout works for drawing 101, drawing 102s, but not drawing 103s. And we'll talk about that. Okay. All right. So that's our drawing 101 class. Let's do drawing 102s. All of my drawing 102s are working on benchmarks this month. Now 102 class, this is, I think 102 is the most intense class that we teach. It is the most academic class that we teach. It's the one that's the most like drill and exercise base, right? The goal in this class is never to finish a lesson. The goal is not to not finish. But the goal is not to finish how do you say this? Our goal is never finish art in this class until we get to March. And then it is, because we're prepping for the art show. But otherwise, every class period that you come, we're there to do exercises and to work those drawing muscles. Okay? It's never a finished composition. It's just not. So we're trying to establish some benchmarks this first month. And we're going to start with these really great prisms. And this one's a cylinder. Wow, it's really blown out. Turn off my light. Maybe we'll get it so it's not so blown out. But you can see my cylinder. Yeah. And this one is a rectangular prism. We also have a cone and a sphere, which I thought was in the box, but it wasn't. So we're going to be drawing our 3D white geometric shapes. And we're going to work on things like perspective and proportion and scale and contour and values, because this thing is going to have shadows in order to make it look three-dimensional. So that's what they are going to be working on their first lesson. For my 102 realistic kids, you guys are going to be using either graphite or charcoal, because that's how we create a grayscale, right? So we're going to practice a value scale, which for a lot of our 102s, if they're repeats, they should be familiar with a value scale. If you're new to it, it's okay. We'll teach you a value scale. And then we're going to practice it, because just because you've seen it once before doesn't mean you can do it like perfectly. I can practice the value scale, and I've been drawing for a really long time, and it's still good for me. It's like, just because I've done push-ups doesn't mean I just don't ever have to do push-ups again in my life, right? It's still good for me. It's still good for me to do those, because it makes me stronger and it makes me better at them. And it's the same with this kind of practice. Now, for my 102s who are in comic and anime, you guys are also going to be working on drawing those prisms and cylinders and spheres and cones, because those are shapes that we use when we draw. And then we're going to also work on rendering the value scale. So once you've nailed the perspective and the proportion and the contour and all of those things, right, then we're going to work on the values. And so there will be lights, there will be darks, and there will be midtones. And they're going to be using ink in order to create their value scale, which is much trickier, I think, than graphite or charcoal, because you can't adjust your light or dark based on pressure. If I grab a black Sharpie marker, it only makes black. It doesn't make gray. It doesn't matter how lightly I try to color with it. It only gets one color. And so they will be working on cross-hatching, scrumbling, and stippling as three ways to represent values. And they'll be working on their value scale. And that's our first benchmark. They will repeat the benchmark lesson in April. And that way we can see how far we've come. It's not a test, it's just a starting point. All right, my 103s. Now 103 is the drawing class. It is the only drawing class where we create a piece of art every month. So in the multimedia classes, right, our goal is finished art by the end of the class. We work for 4 class periods. At the end of 4 class periods, they take something home. Drawing 103 is the same way. And so they will be doing a portrait project. I showed this to my Monday people last week. I'm going to show it this week, and I'm going to do a much better job of explaining it. So my 103 Advanced Realistic, the goal here is realistic drawing. They're going to be making a fractured self-portrait. So this right here is a gridded out sheet of paper. And this right here is what we call a viewfinder. And this viewfinder fits this gridded sheet of paper. I made this. And then this is me on a really good hair day. And so all I'm doing in my example here is I'm finding, like, if this is the one I'm going to do, right? So I find the corresponding shape in the viewfinder, and then I lay it down on my picture, and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to draw that because it was a really good hair day. And I map that out, and maybe I tape it down so it stays there. And I draw what I see in that window on the viewfinder right here on this sheet of paper. And this, like, fractured self-portrait is a different way of drawing me in a way that maybe takes some of the pressure off, because if I just draw this, maybe I feel like something's a little bit off. It doesn't look quite like me. But when I break it down like this, I can be successful at it. So they're doing a fractured self-portrait. They have to make their own viewfinder, which, I mean, that's a little bit of paper craft. So that was a little bit tricky, a lot of X-Acto knives and fun stuff. So they'll make this, they'll take their picture, we'll get it printed, and then they'll start drawing, and they'll have 4 class periods to work on finishing this drawing. These will be finished with a mat, just like our chalk pastel portrait down there, and they'll take that home. Now, I don't have an example for my comic one, so you're going to have to use your imagination. They are also doing a portrait, and they're doing a split portrait. So their style in our comic and cartoon should not look like this one, because this is like realistic drawing, right? This is my style of drawing. Theirs will be in the comic and cartoon style. And the objective is that they draw themselves from 2 different perspectives. And that's pretty wide open, right? I can draw me on a good hair day and on a bad hair day. I can draw me when I'm, at home and when I'm at work, if I feel like maybe that splits my personality. I really don't. I can draw me when the Cubs win and when the Cubs lose. Whatever that split is, it doesn't have to be super, it's not good versus evil or anything, but it could be whatever they interpret that to mean. It could be me in color and me in black and white. But it needs to be 2 different ways. And so they'll split their portrait, and it could be in 2 different styles, me in anime style, me in comic style, whatever they want to do. And they'll be using all of those inking things, Sharpies, microns, alcohol ink markers. They'll start in pencil. Most of our kids start in pencil, but then the finished drawing will be done. And that's for our 103s. We'll pretty much always work with them. All right. A couple of housekeeping things. I felt like I put this into 2 pages, so I might have screwed this up. It's okay. You're okay with that, right? Housekeeping things. I wanted to show you a web page. So let me bring that up for you. On our Orange Easel website, we have a web page that is just for you guys as our enrolled students. Excuse me while I clip things around. I think I can share my screen. So this is, I lose my virtual background when I do this, but it's worth it. This is our webpage. It's just a homepage. If you Google Orange Easel Art, this is where you end up, right? At the very bottom, scroll all the way down. This is the footer of the webpage. It stays the same regardless of what web page you're on. So even if Google takes you to the birthday party page, you still can go to the footer. And right under here where it says for current students, makeup, class schedules, and more, when you click it, it's going to bring up a web page that has some really great resources for you. And I like to show this in our very first video so that if you're ever wondering when your class meets, this is where you can find that information. If you need to make a makeup reservation, this is where you can find that. If you need like our weather policy, or if you're just curious, there it is, right? There's also some information about the emails that you get, which is what you're watching right now, and then some contact information for us. Okay, so this is a web page just for you. And I always want to make sure at the very beginning that everybody knows where to find it. Yeah. All right, let's go back to my PowerPoint. The last thing I'm going to talk to you about, whoops, there we go, is our fall party. So every year in our month of October, we have a party at both studios just for our enrolled artists. So if you're not enrolled in classes, you don't get to come in the month of October. So if you only are here in September, just ignore this. But I want to make sure everybody gets the date on their calendar so they can save it. This is a free event only for enrolled artists. It is Sunday, October 15th. So you can go ahead and share that to your calendar and make sure, hang on, I'm checking it. Yeah, the 15th from 4 to 6 p.m. And we usually do like our, like some pumpkin decorating, and then we do like dinner. So I will get hot dogs, and if I can get caramel apples, I'll do caramel apples. We have chips and water. And then we have stations for the kids to decorate their pumpkins. So a lot of times we do carving stations and decorating stations, and you can just come and have a great time. So from 4 to 6 on the 15th, go ahead and set your calendars, mark it. There will be RSVPs required. We will not open it until October because not everybody in September stays through October, although most of you will. We won't open the RSVP link until October, but there will be RSVPs required. And every year it's like 2 days before and people are like, I didn't know I needed RSVP. And then I have to be the bad guy. So we do require RSVPs. It makes sure that we've got enough food mainly. Okay, so stay tuned to these emails. This is where you'll get that information. This is where you'll get the RSVP information. So always watch the housekeeping part of this video. Sound good? All right, this is the last bit. And I think that's all I have. If anybody needs anything from me, and I try to remember to tell people this is my #1 job right here, is communicating with you, communicating with my team. This is like, it's what they pay me the big bucks for, is to communicate with you guys. So if you need anything, all you have to do is reach out. Don't just wonder about things, just reach out. You can get me with responding to this email. You can also get me on social media with a DM. So your Facebook or your Instagram DMs, those come to me really fast. If you call the studio, make sure that you leave a voicemail, because like right now the phone is on silent, and it will be on silent most of the day today. So we check it, but we don't often answer it. So make sure you leave a voicemail. Okay, guys? All right, I think that's it. I hope everybody has a wonderful first week of classes, and I cannot wait to see you guys soon.